Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I think I didn't do anything wrong. Just made a little joke at his expense, something everyone laughed at except him. Now there's a stack of legal papers on the kitchen counter, and my husband won't even look at me. All this just because I said, even your boss wishes he could have a shot with me, and he happened to hear it. The evening started like any other Friday night gathering at our house. Jonas had invited a few colleagues over, including his boss Lucas Carraway, and I'd prepared my usual spread of appetizers and wine. Our open-plan kitchen flowed seamlessly into the living room, creating the perfect atmosphere for entertaining, something I'd always been good at. Lucas stood near the kitchen island, his easy smile and confident posture drawing everyone's attention as he told stories about their latest project. I found myself gravitating toward the conversation, refilling glasses and adding my own commentary. Jonas seemed quieter than usual, hovering at the edges of the group. "You know," I said, raising my voice slightly to ensure everyone could hear. "Jonas is so lucky to have such an understanding boss. Most wives would be jealous of all those late meetings." I shot a playful look at Lucas, who chuckled appreciatively. The group laughed, but I noticed Jonas's jaw tighten. He mumbled something about getting more ice and disappeared into the garage. "Oh, come on," I continued, emboldened by the attention. "I bet Lucas here gets plenty of offers from the office ladies. Right, Luke?" Lucas's eyes sparkled with amusement. "I couldn't possibly comment on that, Eulalia." That's when I delivered the line that would change everything. "Well, even your boss wishes he could have a shot with me." The words tumbled out with perfect comedic timing, followed by my signature laugh that usually had everyone in stitches. Most of the group chuckled awkwardly, but I caught sight of Jonas in the doorway, ice bucket forgotten in his hands, his face pale as paper. For a split second, our eyes met, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Not hurt, but something deeper. Disgust, maybe. I quickly laughed it off. "Oh, honey, you know I'm kidding." But Jonas had already turned away. The party ended earlier than usual. After everyone left, Jonas went straight to the guest room without a word. I shrugged it off. He'd been too sensitive lately, and everyone else had enjoyed themselves. That's what mattered. The next morning, I found a folded note on my pillow. "We need to talk." 2 weeks later, I found myself at Romano's Bistro with the same crowd, plus a few others from Jonas's office. I'd been looking forward to this dinner all week, especially knowing Lucas would be there. Jonas had been distant since the house party, sleeping in the guest room and barely speaking to me. I was determined to lighten the mood. "So, Lucas," I said, cutting into my salmon, "how's that big project coming along? Jonas has been working so hard on it, staying late, weekend calls. I'm starting to think you're more demanding than I am." I winked at the table. Jonas shifted uncomfortably beside me. "Eulalia, maybe we could—" "Oh, don't be modest," I interrupted. "Tell them about that conference call last Saturday. 3 hours. I told him, 'Honey, if Lucas is going to monopolize your weekends, he better start paying me rent.'" A few people laughed nervously. Lucas raised his eyebrows with an amused smile. I was on a roll. Seriously, though, I don't mind sharing my husband with such a charming boss. At least I know he has good taste in men. The table erupted in uncomfortable laughter. Jonas's face had gone red. "Eulalia, please." "What? I'm complimenting your boss." Besides, I leaned closer to Lucas, lowering my voice just enough to seem conspiratorial, while ensuring everyone could still hear. "I'm sure Lucas appreciates a woman who understands the demands of success. Don't you, Luke?" Lucas's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Your wife certainly has a way with words, Jonas." I beamed. "See? He gets it. That's why you two work so well together. You both recognize quality when you see it." Jonas abruptly stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "I need some air." "Oh, come on, honey. Don't be so serious," I called after him, but he was already walking toward the exit. The table fell silent. Lucas cleared his throat and excused himself to the restroom. The evening limped to an awkward conclusion. Later, at Sophie's school playground, I overheard two mothers whispering near the swings. "Did you hear about Eulalia Finch? Apparently she was flirting with her husband's boss right in front of everyone at Romano's." My stomach dropped, but I held my head high as I walked past them. That night, Jonas didn't come home at all. The rumors started small, but spread quickly through our social circles. What had begun as harmless flirting, at least that's how I saw it, had somehow morphed into something uglier in people's minds. Jonas had been staying at a hotel for 3 days, responding to my texts with single-word answers. I decided to confront the situation head-on. I drove to Jonas's office building and waited in the parking lot until I saw Lucas heading to his car. "Luke," I called out, hurrying across the asphalt in my heels. "We need to talk." He paused, his expression guarded. "Eulalia, this probably isn't the best place." "People are talking," I said breathlessly. "They're making something out of nothing, and it's affecting Jonas. You need to help me fix this." Lucas glanced around the parking lot, then back at me. "Look, you're a beautiful woman, and I enjoy our conversations, but maybe you should focus on working things out with your husband." "Our conversations," I repeated. "Luke, you know there's more between us than just conversation. Those late meetings, the texts." "Careful what you wish for, Eulalia," he said quietly, then got in his car and drove away. That evening, I tried calling Jonas again. When he finally answered, his voice was flat, emotionless. "Jonas, this is ridiculous. You're letting gossip destroy our family. Sophie asked me why Daddy doesn't live here anymore. What am I supposed to tell her?" "Tell her the truth," he said. "What truth? That her mother made a few jokes and suddenly her father abandoned his family. Is that really what you think happened?" I could hear the exhaustion in his voice, but I pressed on. "I think you're being manipulated by your mother and whoever else is filling your head with nonsense. Come home, Jonas. Let's work this out like adults." "I can't do this anymore, Eulalia. I won't." The line went dead. 3 days later, I found Jonas's laptop open on the kitchen counter, something he'd never done before. My curiosity got the better of me. What I saw made my blood run cold, screenshots of text messages, call logs, even a calendar appointment labeled Consultation Divorce Attorney. My hand shook as I scrolled through the evidence he'd been collecting. Messages between Lucas and me that looked far more incriminating when taken out of context. Timestamps showing when I'd claimed to be running errands, but had actually been having coffee with Lucas. Even Sophie's drawing from last month, a stick-figure family, with Daddy Sad written in purple crayon. I slammed the laptop shut. Jonas was being paranoid, invasive, controlling, but as I stared at the closed computer, a cold realization crept over me. He wasn't coming back. The law office of Peterson and Associates occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower downtown. I'd never imagined I'd be sitting in such a place, facing a woman in a sharp suit who spoke about my marriage like it was a business transaction gone wrong. "Mrs. Finch," the attorney said, sliding a folder across the mahogany table. "Your husband has been quite thorough in documenting the breakdown of your relationship." I opened the folder with trembling fingers. Inside were printouts of text messages, bank statements, even photos from social media. The evidence painted a picture I barely recognized, a woman who had publicly humiliated her husband, carried on an inappropriate relationship with his boss, and shown no remorse for the damage to her family. "This is taken out of context," I protested. "These messages with Lucas, we were just friends. Jonas is making something out of nothing." The attorney's expression remained neutral. "Mrs. Finch, emotional infidelity can be just as damaging to a marriage as physical infidelity. Your husband has documented a pattern of behavior that goes beyond friendship." "Pattern of behavior?" My voice rose. "I made a few jokes. I had coffee with a colleague. Since when is that grounds for divorce?" since it became a public humiliation of your spouse and created an environment that affected your children's well-being, she replied calmly. Your daughter's teacher has noted behavioral changes. Your mother-in-law has provided a statement about concerning conversations. This isn't just about jokes, Mrs. Finch. That evening, Jonas came to the house, not to reconcile, but to pack more clothes. I cornered him in our bedroom, desperate to make him understand. Jonas, please. You're destroying our family over nothing. I never touched Lucas. It was all just harmless flirting. You used to like that I was social, that people enjoyed my company. He folded his shirts with mechanical precision, not looking at me. Harmless flirting doesn't involve telling your friends that your husband's boss wants to sleep with you. Harmless flirting doesn't involve secret coffee dates and deleted text messages. I never deleted. I have the phone records, Eulalia. His voice was eerily calm. I know about the messages you deleted. I know about the times you lied about where you were. I know you told Petra that I wasn't meeting your needs and that Lucas made you feel appreciated. My stomach lurched. Those conversations with my sister were supposed to be private, just venting between siblings. You've been spying on me, I accused, going through my phone, my messages. I've been protecting myself, he corrected, finally meeting my eyes. For 12 years, I believed your version of reality. I believed I was too sensitive, too boring, too jealous. But I'm not crazy, Eulalia, and I'm not staying in a marriage where I'm the joke. The next morning, I found legal papers on the kitchen counter and a note informing me that Jonas had moved half of our joint savings to a separate account. The locks had been changed on his office door, and his mother had picked up the children for an extended sleepover. For the first time, I was truly alone in the house, and the silence was deafening. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, with fluorescent lighting that made everyone look pale and tired. Jonas sat at the opposite table with his attorney, his posture straight and his expression composed. He looked like a stranger. The mediation session had been a disaster. I'd tried to explain that everything had been blown out of proportion, that Jonas was being vindictive and cruel. But the mediator had simply nodded and taken notes, her face impassive as Jonas's attorney presented their evidence. Your Honor, Jonas's lawyer began, Mr. Finch is seeking primary custody of the minor children and an equitable division of assets. The evidence shows a pattern of emotional infidelity and public humiliation that has negatively impacted both the marriage and the children's well-being. I watched as they presented their case with clinical efficiency. Screenshots of my social media posts where I'd complained about Jonas being too serious and not understanding that I need to feel appreciated. Statements from Sophie's teacher about her recent anxiety and withdrawn behavior. Even testimony from other parents who'd witnessed my public comments about Jonas and Lucas. My own attorney seemed overwhelmed. Your Honor, Mrs. Finch acknowledges that there were communication issues in the marriage, but she disputes the characterization of her behavior as infidelity. The judge listened impassively as both sides presented their arguments. When it came time for me to speak, I tried to explain that I'd never meant to hurt anyone, that the jokes and comments had been misunderstood. I love my husband, I said, my voice breaking. I love my children. I never wanted any of this to happen. I just wanted to feel valued, to feel like I mattered. Jonas's expression didn't change. He sat perfectly still, his hands folded in his lap, as I pleaded for understanding. The judge's ruling was swift and decisive. Jonas was granted primary custody of Sophie and Evan, with me receiving supervised visitation until I completed counseling. The house would be sold, with proceeds divided according to our prenuptial agreement, something I'd forgotten we'd even signed. As we filed out of the courtroom, I tried one last time to reach Jonas. Please, I whispered, grabbing his arm. Don't do this to our family. The children need both parents. He gently removed my hand from his arm. The children need stability, Eulalia. They need to know that actions have consequences, and that the people who love them will protect them. I protected them, I never let any of this affect them. For the first time all day, Jonas's composure cracked slightly. Sophie drew a picture of our family last week. Do you know what it showed? You and Lucas holding hands while me and the kids stood in the corner. She's 7 years old, Eulalia. 7. I felt the blood drain from my face. She doesn't understand. She understands more than you think. Jonas's voice was quiet but firm, and she deserves better than watching her mother humiliate her father for entertainment. That night, I sat alone in our empty house, surrounded by boxes and memories. My phone buzzed with a text from Petra. Maybe it's time to think about what you really want, Yule, and what you're willing to do to get it back. But as I stared at the divorce papers on the coffee table, I realized it might already be too late. 6 months later, I stood in the empty shell of what had once been our family home. The moving truck had taken the last of Jonas's belongings that morning, leaving behind only the furniture that would stay with the house for the new owners. The silence was absolute. My phone buzzed with a notification, another social media post from Tamsin, my former best friend, showing her at a dinner party I hadn't been invited to. The comments were full of mutual friends laughing and making plans that no longer included me. I'd tried to rebuild my social connections, reaching out to old friends and colleagues, but the responses had been politely distant. So sorry, we already have plans. Maybe next time. I'll call you back. The calls never came. Even Petra had grown tired of my complaints. Our last conversation had been brutally honest. Eulalia, you need to take responsibility for what happened. Jonas didn't destroy your marriage. You did. And until you can admit that, you're going to keep losing people. Through the window, I could see Jonas's car pulling into the driveway of his new apartment complex across town. Sophie and Evan tumbled out of the back seat, their school backpacks bouncing as they ran toward the building. Jonas followed at a more measured pace, but I could see something in his posture that had been missing for years. Peace. My supervised visits with the children had been awkward at first. Sophie had been withdrawn, answering my questions with single words and avoiding eye contact. Evan, too young to fully understand what had happened, kept asking when Daddy was coming home. "Mommy," Sophie had said during our last visit, "why did you say those things about Daddy?" I'd tried to explain that it had all been a misunderstanding, that Daddy was being too sensitive, but Sophie had just looked at me with those serious 7-year-old eyes and said, "Daddy doesn't seem sad anymore." She was right. In the glimpses I caught of Jonas during custody exchanges, he looked lighter somehow. He'd started running again, something he'd given up years ago. His mother had mentioned that he was taking a photography class, pursuing an old hobby I'd always dismissed as a waste of time. My phone buzzed one final time, a voicemail notification. For a moment, my heart leaped, thinking it might be Jonas calling to reconcile. Instead, it was my landlord, reminding me that rent was due on my studio apartment. I walked through the empty house one last time, my footsteps echoing in the rooms where we'd once been a family. In the kitchen, I could still picture that Friday night gathering where it all began. If I could go back, would I do things differently? Would I bite my tongue instead of making that joke? The honest answer scared me. I wasn't sure I would have. In that moment, I'd felt powerful, desirable, the center of attention. The rush of making people laugh, of feeling Lucas's appreciative gaze, had been intoxicating, but the price had been everything. As I locked the front door for the last time, I saw Jonas's car returning to his apartment building. Sophie waved from the passenger seat, but she was waving at someone else. A neighbor, maybe, or a friend from her new school. She looked happy. I got into my car and drove away from the life I'd destroyed, with a joke that nobody found funny except me. The legal papers were final, the house was sold, and my family had moved on without me. In the end, I'd gotten exactly what I'd asked for. I'd proven that even Jonas's boss had wanted a shot with me. The problem was, in winning that hollow victory, I'd lost everything that actually mattered. The joke, it turned out, was on me. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.